The world-famous Randolph Street Market Festival returns July 25th and 26th. One of the top flea markets in the country. It's a destination for antique and art collectors, designers, and anyone who loves hearing, "So what did you get there?" There's a parking garage and the shopping is indoors and outdoors, so AC if it's hot and coverage if it rains. You'll also be able to enjoy live music, great food, and 3 market bars. You never know what you're going to find at the Randolph Street Market. Get tickets at randolphstreetmarket.com.
You ever see a town just quietly do something unthinkable? Bloomington, Indiana did. We were hiking the hills, sipping coffee, strong enough to make you think you could move them, debating the absurdity of greatness. Then one day, greatness raised its cream and crimson flag. A town known for hoops. We make history. You'll want to do the same next time you visit. Bloomington. Not what you expected. Still, absurdly great.
Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for a conversation sponsored by the Water Lantern Festival. If you have not heard, it's going to be back in Humboldt Park July 11th and 12th. And CityCast content director Andrea Salenzi is talking with festival marketing manager Tess Rouser about what makes this year's Lantern Festival so special. Today on CityCast Chicago. Within just a couple of weeks, the police and federal officers raided 2 shady massage parlors in the 12th Ward on the Southwest Side. And the alderperson says authorities have only scratched the surface. So, how many of these establishments are there and what's really happening inside? It's Tuesday, July 7th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. We are joined today by Alderwoman Julia Ramirez from the 12th Ward. How are you doing today?
It's going great. Thank you guys for having me. Good morning.
We've also got our creative producer, Michelle Navarro, in the building. Michelle, it's good to see you, my friend.
Hi, Jacoby.
Michelle, I want to start with you. For the last few months, honestly, you have been blowing the whistle to us about these sketchy ass massage parlors popping up in your neighborhood. Can you kind of tell me, when did you start paying attention, right? When did you start getting interested in what was going down at these massage parlors?
When I moved into the 12th Ward, I noticed that particularly down Archer, which is such a popular street, you don't have to live around it to notice the businesses and the way that it kind of acts as a highway across to the Southwest Side. But yeah, I noticed the amount of massage parlors. And I'm someone, I love getting massages. When I lived in New York for a short time, it's something that I would do very often. Mm-hmm. And so I started to kind of pique interest into them. I didn't go in, but a friend of mine had told me, don't try the one on that block, because I tried to go in and they didn't answer the door for me at all. She's a woman and she's Black. And so she's like, I don't know if they were being racist or they just didn't want to open the door for me. I had seen someone peek through the blinds, but they didn't let me in. And I was like, From then, I started paying attention a little more. I started noticing the frequent just like the amounts of them, like the blinds and the very little information and how they're usually open 24 hours or that kind of thing. And so I started to get fascinated by, there's no way that in a time where there's so many businesses that are struggling, that this many people are getting massages. It was just, I couldn't wrap my head around that. And so I started watching. It got to a point where I would watch people go in all the time, usually men, usually after work hours, sometimes later. And I would just stare because there wasn't anything that I could do. I had no proof that nothing weird was happening, but it was just this deep feeling in my gut. It also took a couple of searches on websites to find these really off-putting websites. One example of the spa that is in my vicinity advertises on their sites 18-year-olds, advertises their heights, 150 centimeters. People have in the community that I've brought this up to have said, have you brought this to the police? Well, I've seen the police enter these establishments. Sometimes they successfully are able to get let in. Sometimes they're not. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, the police are on this. And then obviously, you know, we saw that earlier in June, the ward caught a massage parlor and that well, that was said to be a massage parlor. And so I would love, Julia, for you to tell us what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off by saying I've been in office 3 years, and I want to say it was post COVID where I started noticing a lot more massage parlors as well. But I started realizing that the massage parlors were coming down further west, whether it was like down Archer Avenue, 35th Street, you'll see a good amount of massage parlors as well. But since in office, we started receiving tips from residents. I will say mostly women, mothers that have been highly concerned about safety, for people here, for children in the ward. And so we started working really closely with the police department. There's a department at City Hall. It's the acronym is BACP. You have to work with them in order for them to start an investigation. And to talk a little bit about sort of what Michelle has been seeing, it's been really difficult. It's been stalled in a lot of different ways because they have cameras in front of their entrances. The doors are locked. They won't open the door unless you have an appointment. I'll be very transparent. I've tried to make an appointment myself just to sort of see, how they engage. I've called various establishments. They don't speak English. English isn't a primary language. So they have to translate through some sort of device most times. And then they ask about different services, but then they said they'll call me back. So they
Okay.
sort of want to verify whether or not they should, schedule me. And so I just say all that to say is that there has been a permitting process that sort of allowed these establishments to open. So there's a definite loophole that we need to figure out how to close. But then also, with the departments that I've had to work with, I've been frustrated at the way that we've had to navigate the system. And not just on a city level, but the various raids that have happened right here on Archer in Brighton Park, they've in many instances gotten the federal government involved and also the state, dependent on sort of the sex trafficking or the prostitution that they end up coming to find at these spas.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, Michelle and other neighbors have noticed this for some time. You yourself have started to look into the situation. So when the parlor in Brighton Park was raided in early June, and then another later in the month, you said that some women involved in the business in Brighton Park may have been forced to work there, and that there needs to be a larger conversation around this, right? We're talking human trafficking, forced labor.
Yes. So the first time that this had happened was just about a year ago. There was one evening, I actually was driving by. I was driving down Archer, and I saw the women. They were coming out with their suitcases. I saw the federal agents, and this was before Midway Blitz. And I was kind of in shock to actually see. I mean, we know of suspicious activity. I guess you don't think as far as, who may be the people that are in these massage parlors.
How do we know that folks were trafficked? Is law enforcement saying that's
Oh, yes.
the case
Yeah,
here?
that's
Okay.
an official report. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I do want to add on that I'm not privy to the information as it's being investigated. So in that
Understood.
first instance, when I had seen it, I knew that the city was doing an investigation. I knew that we were struggling to shut that business down due to some suspicious activity. We've been flagging this since I had started. I mean, they closed one right next to my office. So the city, what they have shared with me is that they need to be allowed access. A lot of times that doesn't happen because they need to, make sure that what do they call it, a sting? So somebody can, sort of work that angle and be able to get in and get a massage. And then you kind of have to build up the evidence. But the things that we've gotten, I mean, we've gotten pictures, websites, in some instances, like applications that people have that they can sort of download and message. And I think there's a lot of these places, although they'll have different names on the licenses. And the frustrating part is that when the massage parlor closed down across the street, they have 2 or 3 others that may be open that they're just sort of passing it on.
What makes you say that you feel that there is a a broader connection between some of these businesses?
We tend to see one massage parlor getting a lot of activity. And then if we raid that one or, close it or they're ticketed, there seems to be another one that has high activity. And so I think that if they're not offering that one place or maybe working that one place, they have another place to go to. We have a list of others and we have to really just stay on top of. The other thing is, the departments, just like in many other instances, they're under-resourced, understaffed. And so like if they don't gain entry, sometimes they just go on to another thing. But like I mentioned, we're actually introducing something this summer, working with the business department at the city to figure out how we can just eliminate giving people the access to these licenses at all. So that way we don't have 5 or 6 other that are going to continue to open when we close the others.
How does the license work? Because you talk about there being a loophole. I know that one of the raids took place because people were operating without proper licenses, but how does this permitting or license process work?
So we raided one spa. Next door, it used to be a smoke shop, but it was all under the same building. It was just a different unit.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow they gained entry. They didn't have a license, but they did have an entry, a key to use it. So there wasn't like, any spa or massage signs or anything, but they were using that as well. And, luckily we ended up getting that one rated pretty quickly because we ended up getting a call that actually a young man that was walking down the street was solicited. And so the state was involved in that particular case. And, I back to a question that you asked before, on the city end, they can sort of inspect, whether this particular license, the cleanliness, if they're following code based off of the license, they can cite them, but not necessarily close them. And it's sort of the state and the federal government that somehow are building up a case where we have seen trafficking and prostitution.
The Taste of Chicago is back in Grant Park, y'all, and it's going down July 8th through the 12th. That's Wednesday through Sunday. You heard me. That's 5 days of celebration that bring the whole city out of towners. We all together out there celebrating the city, footworking. We know Chicago is one of the best food cities in the world. Ain't nobody gonna tell me different. But whether you craving a classic neighborhood bite or you trying to discover your next favorite spot, let me put you on that Lexington Betty Smokehouse. The Taste brings all of these flavors together that make Chicago the place it is. And here's a tip. Some of the food pop-ups only happening on certain days. So check the schedule. And if you're looking for some Taylor's Tacos, they only gonna be out there Wednesday and Thursday, all right? So write it down and maybe go ahead and plan a couple of trips. Plus, we gotta talk about the music. I have been overly impressed by the performances at the Taste in the last couple years, and this ain't no different. They got Beach Bunny, Original Coffee, Babyface gonna be out there, y'all. Julieta Venegas gonna be out there, y'all. Common gonna be out there. Of course he is. Whether you go every year, you ain't been in a while, or for some reason you on the sideline hating, nah, man, get out there. Taste Chicago 2026. Visit tasteofchicago.us for the full lineup and more info. This one is from my wine aficionados and my nature lovers out there. Summer Wine Fest is back at Lincoln Park Zoo July 18th. Yes, one night only. You'll be able to sample a curated selection of wines, explore the zoo's botanic garden, enjoy a beautiful live string quartet, and even drop into a casual dance class. So, go on, put the lemon pepper steppers on if you got it. Plus, there will be winery representatives and an expert horticulturist, so bring your best wine and garden questions. It'll be an enchanting evening of wine, music, and lush gardens at Lincoln Park Zoo on July 18th. But there is only a few tickets left, so go ahead and reserve your spot today. Tickets and more information are available at lpzoo.org/events.
So you mentioned that, there's other massage parlors, massage spas that you're aware of? The two that just got shut down last month, they were both in Brighton Park. There's others, there's one in Bridgeport of an alleged brothel that got shut down also in the same month. What are current investigations that are happening or that you're aware of in Brighton Park or in the surrounding 12th ward?
Yes, I will say that, working very closely with Alderwoman Lee and the 11th ward, she also sees a greater amount of massage parlors in her ward as well. There is a list that we have. I spoke to the superintendent last week after they raided the location next to my office. And I just said, like, let's get this done. Like, let's, keep people safe. Let's close all these other massage parlors. And I have since then sent him our list to the superintendent.
How big is the list?
We currently have a list of 6 that we're currently waiting for further investigation. I don't have a status, but when I talked to the superintendent, I was really happy to hear that this was something that was pretty high on his radar, not just here, but other things that he's been seeing, more so on the southwest side. And he wanted to work with other levels of government as well to make sure that, yes, that we can continue shutting down these businesses. So, in tangent, we got to do that part. But then we also got to figure out as we're closing, 2 or 3 others are not opening as well simultaneously. The other part that I've been mentioning in my interviews is that landlords have to be held accountable. So when, I'm mentioning that there was a smoke shop that had just recently left and the massage parlor was raided next door, how did they gain access to that particular building? And it's the same case, I rent 2 units, that other unit is rented by the same landlord. And what I've seen is sort of this trend of landlords, potentially accepting money up front. You know, I can't speak for all the landlords, but when you have them sign a lease, they have to be more attentive throughout those months that they're upholding that business. There has to be stress on landlords and who they're renting to as well.
You've mentioned the business license a few times. What's the fix or the ordinance here to address that?
So some of the ideas that we have that we want to speak with the business department at the city this is something that Michelle alluded to right in the beginning was the hours. Some of these establishments do put on their website that they're open 24 hours or very late night. But the other thing is wondering how we can sort of certify the people that open the spas. And I don't want to create conflict in between, like Western and Eastern medicine. We want to sort of confirm a certification that someone has prior to opening. There isn't one that currently exists. And so it's really
Oh.
open-ended about someone opening one without knowing whether they're certified in that particular practice. We need to figure out how to create some barriers and not try to stop anybody who legitimately wants to open them, but keep people safe. Like we can't continue, harboring these locations, especially when we have found that in all instances of the raids, trafficking and prostitution.
Even the parlors, the spas that I've noticed that shut down, they always appear like this bright orange sign and it says notice from the Department of the Buildings. And so I read that that was always a way to, because it's so hard to gain access or to kind of collect that evidence, that's a way that the city has been able to crack down through building inspections. And then once you read the fine print of the notice, you see it says like off limits from the Department of the Buildings due to code violations that threaten life, safety, and health. But it doesn't specifically say, what the business was doing, if it was for people paying for sex. The notice is always kind of just alluding to this place is not safe and it's not in business anymore.
So to that point, a lot of folks end up seeing sort of the end result, the one right next door to my office. Many people don't know, but it had gotten raided maybe over a year ago. And I had gotten a call from a resident. Someone said, there's all these agents outside. I walked over. I live very close from here. And I seen the women again with the suitcases and they had come out. They closed the business And then there was this weird where they closed the business on that end, but then they didn't receive violations right away on the city end. And so they weren't working together. And then the city said, well, we can't close them down because we have to do our own investigation, which I was super furious about because I had seen these women, I had pictures. And so it's been hard to sort of have them work together sometimes. And to another part that Michelle is talking about, there has also been instances that we have gotten the city to put the orange sign and cite them for violations, but if they pay to do whatever X amount of fixings, they can reopen. So then, federal and state have to continue their investigation. And so it's either like one or the other.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get lucky enough that it's all happening at the same time.
So basically you got the feds in there, state officials, local police, Department of Buildings, Department of Business, all potentially flagging issues with these establishments for one reason or another, from big things like trafficking to building issues to licensing issues. But it doesn't sound like they're always coordinated and they're always working together. So maybe they got shut down by the feds. Maybe they just got paused by Department of Buildings. I mean, even as we were looking up, articles and reporting, it seems like there's a lot happening. And I hate to be the person that's like, no one's really talking about this. But it does feel like because of that issue, there isn't a lot of information for people to really glean onto to get a really clear picture.
I completely agree with you, Jacoby. Like before I had started, not a lot of people would talk about it. I mean, we would be suspicious. We would kind of.
I mean, in our culture, this is kind of like a thing people just like talk and joke about, right? Like massage parlors that offer the sort of happy ending. That's just like a cliche at this point, but it's obviously a really big deal, and in some cases, a very dangerous situation.
So to that point, when we posted the one that actually had like a video from someone, the one from last month across from my office, we had like the most traction on that post that we had ever had in the 3 years that I had been in office. And when you look at the comments, it's all jokes. It's all, man, why'd you have to shut it down? Like, man, that's crazy. I used to go there, or, no more happy endings. And so yes, I think that it is part of the culture that it's sort of, people kind of joke about, laugh about, but I've too often am I seeing more faces and seeing the very vulnerable women that are coming out of there. Like this is just happening so much more. And so I hope that we are going to start taking it more seriously. That's why I ended up getting the superintendent involved and just trying to figure out how we could just all work together in unison and make a real difference for real. I mean, it's important for us to do one, but when I have a list of many others, it's still really concerning for me.
Mark your calendar, Chicago, to celebrate the Public Library Foundation's 40th anniversary. They're hosting their first ever summer soiree. It's going down August 26th at the McDonald's headquarters rooftop in West Loop. There's going to be free food, an open bar, and personalized poems. Plus, they promise other surprises in store. And maybe, just maybe, your favorite host will be in the building. The theme is 40 and bolder to celebrate the foundation's 4 decades of impact, building up Chicago's libraries into one of the city's most amazing resources. And your $100 soiree ticket goes towards funding lifelong learning programs like free homework help, teen internships, and digital skill classes for adults. The event is 21 and over, so don't miss the opportunity to connect with fellow library lovers over a themed cocktail. Buy your tickets at bit.ly/CPLF Summer Soiree. We've also got the link in the show notes. The Newberry Library will be opening its doors Saturday, July 18th for Newberry Fest. It's a free open house where visitors can see exhibitions, take a tour, join a workshop, and browse a used book sale. You'll also be able to see a 1776 copy of the Declaration of Independence, as well as an array of books, manuscripts, maps, and more. Plus, Curators and librarians will be around to answer your questions about the library's collection of rare and historical materials spanning a millennia. Learn more and register at newberry.org.
Why Brighton Park and the 12th Ward? Like, what makes the area such a hot spot for shady massage parlors?
I have been struggling sort of, you know, talking about this is a predominantly Hispanic ward, where there is a growing Asian community. People that live, 11th Ward, Chinatown, Bridgeport are moving westward. That's just how it's been for many decades. People get priced out, they move west. And I really want to be sensitive about talking about these establishments being run. I don't want there to be, just like how we built up in culture, this idea like, oh, they're here and look at what they're doing. And it has to be a negative thing. But I do think that it's also been a shift in the amount of businesses and people moving westward, and some of those businesses having existed, a little bit further away from us. And I just think over time they have found more space on this large corridor that, unfortunately, I mean, this corridor over time, we've seen a lot of changes. And you live here, Michelle. There's a lot of vacant buildings and vacant units. And so it's amazing to me that they feel so emboldened to do something on Archer Avenue when we have so much high traffic. It's a mini expressway. People from all over are coming up and down, and they're right there. And raid after raid, they still have other businesses open. And so these individuals are really bold, and we have to sort of push back and fight back.
Yeah, and like when you mentioned that Bridgeport, like this moving west pattern, and there's also kind of this relationship between neighborhoods with high immigrant populations and people who have the power and to be able to kind of take advantage of immigrants. You were speaking about not wanting to discriminate, but if you look at if these parlors are mostly Asian women, migrant women, it's are some of the people that are most vulnerable, especially to sexual and violence, like exploitation. And then you put on top of that where there is this culture of prostitution or sex work when it comes to highways. You think about like the stereotypical rest stop and things like that. And for Archer to exist as this kind of, not as a like a very walkable buildings are vacant, it almost kind of is like the perfect spot for it, because you just have high traffic coming in and out, very little foot traffic, and then again being set in this immigrant community where things can kind of just blend in. Maybe a very empty, isolated massage parlor next to an empty building, next to an abandoned parking lot, next to an abandoned gas station. On the topic of just kind of like what Archer is and why so many of them on Archer, I know that there is the Moving Archer Forward development project. Like Archer is getting this big development project. Can you tell us about Moving Archer Forward?
Yeah, and something that you just shared about it not being Archer not feeling very walkable. When you see not many people walking around or cars pulling over because there's not a lot of businesses, when you see a car pull over and a man come out, a man that may not be somebody from the area, you notice those things as well. And
I've seen that so many times, like so many times, sometimes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of people. They're not really hiding. It's happening in plain sight. And, to Archer and sort of this vision that we have for Archer, I grew up right here. I live a block away from my office. So I've existed, had to cross Archer all my life, whether through programming, getting to the park, getting to the school. And, I know that it was never walkable growing up as a kid. And even now, I do notice that a lot of people are really dependent on cars. And, our vision for the future is really, how do we create more accessibility? How do we allow more people to feel like they can use other forms of transport? And the investment is so large. So we actually currently in Brighton Park on Archer are investing $20 million In one part, we're doing our complete streets, our safety infrastructure for all modes of transport. And then we're actually, a lot of people don't talk about this, but investing $10 million on new water lines right on Archer Avenue. The reason why this is so big is that we haven't done this work in nearly 100 years.
Mhm.
And we experienced so much flooding last summer right here on the Southwest side that we just wanted to make sure that we got the work done. I know it's a lot all happening at once, but after this, I mean, we can sort of, claim this victory of how much investment and a change that really sort of nearing the future that is hopefully more engaging overall for people to get around, for business to feel like they're more accessible and really to sort of like change the culture here on the Southwest side as a whole.
Yeah, nobody was talking about the water lines because Michelle was talking about there was some drama around bike lane construction in the ward. I mean, what's your response to criticism that these changes could hurt existing businesses or they're not in line with what long-term neighbors, are remember about the neighborhood or what they want for the community?
Of course. I mean, growing up in the city, I was talking about, as people call it, teen takeovers, right? And growing up, I remember we would get on the train and we would always go up north. It always felt like there was more fun. It felt more safe. There was always a lot more stores. I remember always walking down Milwaukee Avenue, with my brother. And it always felt like you always had to go out of your way to do that. And so in terms of just living in the city, that type of experience, it's like, why can't we have that? Why can't I walk down Archer, get like a cool pair of sneakers, get a smoothie, go buy groceries, do all of those things without having to get in my car and make several stops, right? And so when I think about small business, I actually think that this new infrastructure actually hopefully initiates more people to say, hey, I'm going to stay right here and I'm going to do all the things all at once. And we could do it walking. And because that's sort of the experience that people go out of their way to get in other neighborhoods. And so for businesses, we're here for them. I have somebody specifically working for them. And so I hope we could see that change and that shift. Another part that I want to make sure that I mention is that so much is happening on Archer, due to construction, but we're also dealing with, Operation Blitz that still very much exists.
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody was just taken in my ward. And so the federal government targeting us through Operation Blitz and businesses obviously feeling a strain in sort of all the taxation and all the tariffs that are happening. A lot happening at once. We're very sensitive to it, but I think that this investment is something for the future. I hope that people can lean in on that.
I mean, is this recent crackdown on the illicit businesses having any effect on this initiative and people's hopefulness for what's next?
I mean, so you think about there's not a lot of business. I get residents from decades ago. My family's been here for about 50 years. Like, oh, what Archer used to be, and brick and mortar, they've been struggling all over the city. This isn't, something just to the
Facts.
12th ward, right? And so if you live on a mini expressway, you have all this vacancy, so much vacancy that there's some sort of, massage parlor that just wants to open up because the landlord doesn't have a tenant and they're in need of money. It all sort of interconnects. So why not build an opportunity where people can feel like it's more of a neighborhood, you can walk around safely and then be like, yeah, I want to open a business here. Like, this is nice. Like, they've invested in this area. And then that way a landlord can't say they don't have options. Like, that's what we want to provide. We want to provide good options. We want people to pay rent. But we don't want these massage parlors to be the only option. But we haven't invested in any ideas. And so we have what we have now because of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a conversation I've had with so many of my friends in the neighborhood of like me telling them about this weird obsession I have with these businesses. We hear so much about sex trafficking now, and it's just been and it's almost like, how can I, as a neighbor, as someone that cares about my community, how can I, like, what can I do? Like, again, if we have the Department of Buildings, Department of Public Health,
Right.
we have the city, CPD, we have state and federal agents looking into these things. It's just like, what can I do? And me and my friends were trying to think about like, what can we do? What can we do? And honestly, as a neighbor, I just started, whenever I would just stop on the street and just stare at these men, just stare at them. Because maybe we just need to bring back public shaming. I don't know what it is, but it would work. They would look at me, because again, there's no one else on Archer, right? It's just me and this guy at like 8 p.m. while I'm trying to get home from the train or something. And you could see how that itself to me was so evident of what was going on inside this business, because you could see them so nervous or so alarmed that someone was looking at them. And so this moving forward Archer project makes me excited for the future of Archer, because I could imagine that, it's not just going to be this easy thing for someone to walk in without being seen. Like there's going to be more eyes on people. Because the idea of, there being women inside that do not want to be there, or again, because they're migrant women, like one of the most vulnerable population for sex work when it comes to, already, there's already the fear of being charged, which I know that in Illinois, it is a class A misdemeanor. But, when you put on top of it that you're scared of deportation, or when, you're relying on someone for money for your livelihood, it's, you think about the women inside there too. And so I appreciate the work that's being done to help keep not just the ward safe and of course, the people safe, but also thinking about the people that are inside.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. It's in two parts, like I believe the community keeps us safe. We're trying to build out an Archer that feels more communal, but we can't also neglect, as you're saying, the people that are most vulnerable, behind those doors, and not think that they're not also part of our community in some way. So thank you for highlighting that.
I want to give a huge thank you to the 12th Ward Alder, Julio Ramirez. Thank you for making time for CityCast Chicago today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
And our creative producer, Michelle Navarro, thank you for being so vigilant on this.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Remember, the Chicago Police Department accepts tips regarding prostitution, human trafficking, and other illegal activity through their general anonymous tip line. You can report tips via the following options: text a tip or TXT2TIP. You can text the word CPD along with your tip to 274-637. You can also text CPD tip to 738-477 to receive a link to their anonymous web tip form. Online, you can submit an anonymous tip through the CPD tip form on the City Protect platform. The next segment you hear depends on whether you're a CityCast Chicago neighbor. That's because every single Tuesday we're giving neighbors a members-only segment where they get a little sneak peek into the behind-the-scenes conversations going down on our side of the microphone. This week, we're actually going to try to work through a pitch, but of course, we do go on a couple of tangents. But to hear the idea and to get access to all of our members-only content alongside ad-free listening and neighbors-only events, you got to sign up at membership.citycast.fm/Chicago. And if you're not a member, we got an interview sponsored by the Water Lantern Festival, which will be going down at Humble Park this Saturday and Sunday.
Hey, CityCast Content Director Andrea Salenzi here. There are some things we do outside that I look forward to all year long. Picking apples in the fall, winter light shows, food festivals on a really hot summer night. And I'm here to suggest a new tradition you're going to have to experience for yourself: releasing a glowing lantern into the water at sunset, right in the middle of your beautiful city, surrounded by hundreds of your neighbors doing the exact same thing. That's what I'm talking about today with Tess Rouser, the marketing manager for the Water Lantern Festival. Hey, Tess.
Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Oh, I'm so excited for folks to picture what this festival really looks like. So the Water Lantern Festival happens in cities all over the country. If you're hearing this, it's coming to your city soon. So for someone who's never been, what is it actually like to be there?
The Water Lantern Festival isn't your typical festival. Yes, when you arrive, there are food trucks and local vendors. There's family activities, games going on, a scavenger hunt. It's very lively, fun, upbeat music going on. But the event definitely turns inward and more reflective as the night goes on. It really pivots and the music changes and the whole vibe changes. So it's almost the best of both worlds. Guests are encouraged to write on their lanterns, and everyone gathers by the water at sunset to release their lanterns. That's definitely the peak of the event. Watching hundreds or even sometimes thousands of lanterns on the water is incredibly peaceful and emotional. People often tell us that it's a moment that stays with them long after the night ends.
So everyone who attends gets to personalize their own lantern before releasing it in the water. What have you seen people write or draw on their lanterns?
Yes, so each ticket comes with a lantern that comes with everything you'll need for the evening. Your markers, the biodegradable paper that you can write on or design. And that's one of the most important parts of the event. People write, all kinds of things. Messages of love or hope or remembrance or gratitude, or sometimes people are setting intentions or goals for what they want to do that year. More of a personal story for me. I lost my nephew 3 years ago, and there was a lantern festival near me on his angelversary 2 years after. And it was the most incredible and meaningful experience that I was able to have with my family, where we came and remembered him and honored him and shared stories about him and released it onto the water in a glowing just moment of remembrance. But honestly, we see so many things. We see lots of proposals. There's nothing like seeing someone down on one knee proposing in front of just thousands of lanterns on the water. So it's fun because every lantern tells a personal story, but when they're released together, it becomes a meaningful and powerful shared moment.
So it's shared grief or shared celebration. It's kind of all of it.
It is. It's all of it. You'll see names, you'll see dates, hearts, drawings, but even sometimes just a single word that holds a lot of meaning.
So when you look out at the crowd at one of these festivals, what do you see? Is this families, couples? Who's the attendee?
It's really a diverse crowd, which is something we absolutely love. You'll see the families with kids, couples, friends groups, lots of girls' nights with their charcuterie boards and blankets and pillows that they brought to set up camp for the night. There isn't one type of attendee, and that's something we absolutely love. So it definitely brings together people from all walks of life.
Can you give me the scale of Water Lantern Festival? Like, how long has this been going on? How many cities have you been to? How many people have released a lantern into the water?
Yes, we actually just surpassed our 2 million lanterns being released into the water. So the largest lantern festival of its kind. We've been in business for 9 years. So it started as just a small community gathering, has expanded and grown to over 175 different cities, nationwide and now worldwide, expanding into Australia, Canada, the UK, Mexico here in a few weeks. So it's really fun to be able to bring this experience of love and hope and connection to the world.
Is there anything else someone should know before they get their ticket? Any tips for attending?
I'd encourage people to come with an open heart and to give themselves time to enjoy the experience from start to finish. It's not meant to be a fast-paced event. It's meant to slow you down and create space for that reflection and connection. So it's always a good idea to come early so you can still hit the food trucks, the music, the vendors, the booths, the scavenger hunt, but then still have time to sit and personalize your lantern and just take everything in and turn more inward.
Tess, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Andrea.
If you want to find a Water Lantern Festival near you and grab tickets, just head to waterlanternfestival.com. You can search for your city there, and it's a good idea to get your tickets in advance since many events do sell out. And for the latest updates, you can follow them on social media at Water Lantern Festival. Thanks for listening.
Before we get out of here, I got some good news for you. Speaking of Humboldt Park, this Friday, the Chicago Latin Jazz Festival is going down and it's free to everybody. I'm going to drop a link for you in the show notes. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.